almost to hell and back kind of a move for the market. At a point in time, people are talking about 18,000, 20,000 may come. Market BJP has not got the majority. It was looking for this, that, but pretty mature reaction of the market yesterday as the market came to terms that coalition government will not be a very bad idea. We've got a history, a successful history of coalition governments in the past. Markets have generated positive returns. Economy has been an upswing in many of those terms as well. So now that it is established, what are the things, monitorables in your view, which the market will focus on in the near term?
Yeah, Ajay, good morning. Well, I think it's a sign of a matured market, undoubtedly. On one side, I think you have a coalition government. On the other side, I think a very strong man at the top who knows how to maintain the relationship with one and everybody. He has demonstrated these skills, I think, in the international markets, wherein I think he has managed the relationship with the global countries. I'm sure I think these skills are also equally important for the India as a country as a whole, wherein all the allied partners with whom I think he is working, I guess I think he is going to maintain a very strong relationships. And strategically, this is very important. I'm not getting into the portfolio allocation subjects at this point of time, but I do believe there's a maturity out there with the BJP government and its allied partner. They know fully well that if the country is progressing, then possibility of I think getting higher amount of share for the state, or for that matter, I think there are people in the state. I guess I think it could be much more realistic. So I guess I think a good support is coming, and because of that, I believe that the market is going to remain positive. Investors are going to be remaining confident. Maybe these numbers are going to be forgotten after a couple of days once the ministries and the governments are formed. We are likely to see the allocation of money towards a higher growth program. In our understanding, I think the 100-day program which Modi has talked about is well on the cards. Probably, I think implementation of this subject is being keenly looked at by the market participants. So overall, I believe that I think the opportunity side is not reducing. On the contrary, I believe that some of the sharp corrections in individual stocks is keeping, I think, a good amount of possibility to buy those stocks into the portfolio because of other fundamental reasons. I think the stocks have corrected. Fundamentals remain very clear in most of the business cases, even at this point of time.
Let's welcome on board Sanjeev Bhasin as well, who's joining in. And Sanjeev, are you
Seem to be suggesting, in fact, CLSA is saying that the channel checks suggest that in the 100-day agenda, the key focus of the government could be infra and defense. Now, with the caveat that many of these defense stocks have already moved up quite a lot, which are the ones which you still see juice in defense and infra?
So, Ajay, I'll answer that question in a while, but my understanding says that I think the key agenda in the 100 days is going to be pushing forward the reforms. Allocation of money towards infra is definitely understood because every spend that you do in infra results into consumption increase and also the tax increase, and say because of that, the government's ability to carry on this activity further and further. So that is absolutely unquestionable. I think their allocation will, the infra will continue from 11.11 lakh crore allocation. I think I would not be surprised in the final budget, the main budget. I think that amount increases to 12 lakh crore. So that is a distinct possibility, and it is likely to increase every year by 10 to 15%. That is absolutely clear. Now, when this particular situation happens, in my viewpoint, I think entire manufacturing space gets the maximum advantage. Because when it is an infrastructure related activity, not only the capital goods segment, but the supporting players, the ecosystem along with, they are all, I think, beneficiary out of it, including the metal commodities. So in my viewpoint, I think we are in for a major upside in the entire economy due to the manufacturing push which is coming in. But when I was mentioning about the reforms, I think that's an interesting proposition. I believe that I think there are two significant reforms likely to come up in the 100-day agenda. One of them is likely to be CBDC, central bank's digital currency. My understanding says that I think the physical currency will be asked to be swapped with the digital currency. And the key rationale there would be that with the digital currency coming in, it will have the ability for the RBI to measure the growth of circulation and liquidity into the economy. And that could possibly allow them to manage the inflation part much significantly. Should you manage inflation well, I think all of the equations fall in place. I think that is what is really well understood. So in my viewpoint, I think it is CBDC which is going to take one a clear shot. And second one would be the ONDC, the Online Network of Digital Commerce. This is already launched subject, but I think now it is time to integrate it along with the rural players, so that I think the buyer as well as the seller come on the same platform for e-commerce and ultimately get I think the advantage in form of price, check the inflationary pressure on the prices. These two areas are significant according to me as far as I think the reform process is concerned, and they are likely to be seen, I think, in those 100-day programs that the Prime Minister talked about.
Right. Bunch of other names, which actually led the recovery yesterday. So while clearly the Adani names were right on top there, we've been chatting about as to how some of the private banking names really came to the fore. Yesterday, Innocent Bank was the one which was on a tear. Metals made a very significant comeback, even though the Novelis IPO got postponed. You had a gap down on Hindalco, and then it covered back and closed in with over 7% gains on the stock. Tata Steel was a very strong one. Hero Motocorp is now sitting at a life high, and we've been talking about the strength-to-strength moves in M&M already. Another 6% of a dash is what you saw on that counter yesterday as well. But Devin, just your thoughts on how one should look at some of the high beta plays like the Adani names, for instance, right now.
Absolutely convinced Aisha about I think the fundamental stories within the infrastructure. And this infrastructure story, the beauty part of this infrastructure story is that once the infrastructure is laid down, the businesses start producing cash, and I think ultimately work on negative working capital. It has been seen in the areas of road assets, it's been seen in the areas of airport assets, it has been seen in many other areas, including the distribution of power, wherein I think the companies they end up generating significantly large amount of cash after the real businesses have been set up. Now, in this case of Adani's also, I think most of the businesses are generating significantly large amount of cash. Already they are about 80,000 crore EBITDA. They are growing at the rate of around 20%. By end, they have got a net debt in books of around 2.25 lakh crores. So, which is basically not significant from the point of view of the payability of this particular debt is concerned. So, all equations in the checkbox are they are working right for this group at this point of time. And in my viewpoint, 7x of the premium valuation in some of the cases. I think most of the companies are ripe for a good amount of growth in their profits in coming years. So definitely any correction in the price or the fall in the price would become the best opportunity for those who have missed out investing into this group.
Devin, I want to talk to you about these wealth management stocks and even for that matter AMC stocks. The reason is that while we all know that some of these stocks have been direct beneficiaries of Indians HNI retail latching onto the equity bandwagon, but now the news incrementally is that some of these companies like Nuvama, 361 are aiming at NRI, OCI and the wealthy global Indian fraternity opening offices in Singapore, Dubai as the latest news suggests. Do you see this flow business to come into these kind of companies in a more structural manner, and would you recommend wealth companies or direct AMCs to be part of the portfolio?
Well, I guess I think there is no denial of the fact that most of the intermediaries would be the beneficiaries because of the higher amount of generation of investment surplus in the economy. Today, we are a $4 trillion economy, out of which about $400 billion is, I think, coming into the financial assets. Tomorrow, we are likely to be, in the next 10 years' time, we are likely to become, I think, a $12 trillion economy. And we are likely to see four times growth in the financial asset to 1.5, $1.6 trillion. So, which means that anybody who is systematically focusing on this pie, they are going to be significant amount of beneficiary in this particular game plan. Whether individual companies, whether the distributors should be looked at, whether the fund management company should be looked at, whether the AIF should be looked at, or whether the asset management companies should be looked at. I think the opportunity is fair and square for everybody in this particular game plan because I think the size of the cake is growing and growing big. If I have to put across my energy behind, I think identifying few sectors and the companies therein. Yes, definitely. I think the AMC business looks, I think, very, very convincing. Out there, I think the growth in the size of the asset will result into higher amount of AUM and ultimately, I think the evaluation. Similarly, I think the insurance companies who are also clocking in around 20% new business premium, they are likely to see higher amount of growth in the AUM, investment AUM, and that is also likely to result into better valuations going forward. Rest of the players are selectively we looked at, I think, from more from the individual specific opportunity point of view. But I think from the sector allocation point of view, these two segments looks, I think, relatively better off compared to it. Maybe I think depository can be added to it, but I think the money making proposition stays very high with AMC as well as in insurance companies.
Sure. Okay, the currency open as well, 83.41 to the dollar is where we're currently.